What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. We were just in Los Angeles, California for the CLOL Championships. Had a lot of fun. If you were there and said hi to us, we really appreciate it. But we're back at home, and maybe a little bit too soon for Hawk, as he was struggling to get some of these assets together. But we're here. The summer split starts in a couple of days. We got the NACL qualifiers and the NACL to talk about. Hawk, how are you doing?
Well, since you called me out, yeah, I'm pretty tired. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning Pacific time, which, mind you, I didn't get back to my hotel until like 1 a.m. that night from Mom's, the apparently esports bar. Had fun. Shout out to everyone that was there.
Nice.
And now I went to bed last night. I woke up today, and apparently I didn't get enough sleep because I slept like through the entire afternoon as well. So it's been like we've really been recovering. But LA, as you said, was like an absolutely amazing time. It was amazing getting to meet so many of the people that are probably watching this in person. They say don't meet your heroes, but our heroes are all pretty fucking cool. So
Yeah. Our heroes all CLOL players who performed pretty well, and some other people as well. So, gonna be a fun episode. Kind of a weird, wonky one. We apologize again for some of the weird video things that happened. I forgot to bring an SD card reader, so Hawk's camera did not.
We were
get
a little
processed.
over ambitious, in general with that one. But hey, we tried, and Winnie and Sky gave us great conversation.
We did get some good stuff out of it. So I think overall it was okay, but
Yeah.
we got a real normal episode. We're back in our boxes, which is all good. And some quick disclaimers, some quick housekeeping before we get started. It is start of summer split coming up in a couple days, but due to some of the changes that happened with the NACL, all the qualifiers will be streamed on twitch.tv/rallycry official and twitch.tv/rallycry2. That does mean that Salty Runback will not be used to stream the NACL qualifiers anymore. However, if you are an OQ talent or a caster who wants to get your OQ game streamed, let us know, and we will do our best to help you out in whatever way possible.
Yeah, we want to provide a platform for everybody. We've got weekend commitments. By the time this goes up, it'll be after Friday morning, right?
Yeah, maybe like noon or so.
Oh, that's cutting it close.
Oh
no!
We can delay the announcement so you can leak your little,
yeah.
little
Because we got weekend commitments. Obviously, Grapes is gonna be on the NACL qualifier broadcast every day over the weekend, which is fucking awesome. Shout out for Rally Cry for stepping up their coverage of that, and I'll be on the CLOL English broadcast for quite a bit of the split.
Let's go!
Yeah, super excited, guys. I know we're all North America here, but Brazil has a lot of fun League of Legends going on. The space is really thriving down there. So be sure to tune in on the weekend. Starting at noon is when the games start. So it's before LC. Well, we don't have LC. It's before NACL. Be sure to check that out.
A little warm up, perhaps.
Yeah, a little bit of a warm up. You can watch some Brazilian league, and then you can hop in NACL. But I should also mention as well that this episode, since we're speaking of the day it's releasing, is going to be released on a Friday. Grapes, we haven't actually talked about this, but I assume we'll be going back to our regular upload schedule moving forward. So that means recording on Tuesdays, uploading on Wednesdays. So this one's a little bit weird because of the CLO schedule, right? But we will be getting back to the regular Wednesday programming.
It said new episodes every Wednesday down here for like the last 3 episodes, but I don't think any of them have been released on Wednesday. But
definitely not the last few. It's been all bets off during the off season, but
that is
during
the plan
the season,
moving forward, though.
We'll try to get back to our regular schedule as best we can.
Before we get into headlines, we do have some other news to talk about. So already going off the rails a little bit, but the LCS did just come out with a statement about a couple hours before we started recording about some of the changes and the discussions that they had with the LCS Players Association. We can go through it really quickly right now, and if things end up becoming more important later, we could discuss it at a future date. But overall, what are your thoughts about some of the things that were put out there today?
Yeah. So all you need to know about this, at least as far as NACL is concerned, is that they're gonna, they gave the $300,000. They're gonna try to look for more revenue sharing opportunities. We kind of already knew that. Then there is going to be they're gonna revamp like the way it's run or something. That revamp the people in charge, something like that.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand that. I didn't know what that meant, but somehow something about like the people at the top of the NACL are going to get changed in some way, or like the structure like internally is what it seemed like to me. And also, for people, it seemed like people making under 1.5 times the league minimum, which is pretty much everybody. There is 1 week notice and severance, which is, I think, the biggest change. However, by and large, not that much going on, which is why we didn't want to dedicate a whole lot of time to this. It's kind of just like, okay, some things happen, but honestly, not a lot, and that's that.
Yeah, while we did see some things like that changed, a lot of the announcements and information about NACL was kind of already discussed. Rallycry did put up an announcement like confirming that all $300,000 that they did receive is going directly to the
Which
teams, which is
is
very
great.
good. Great
I
by
want to
them.
point out,
Yeah.
Rallycry really seems like they're taking some steps this split, so good for them.
Yeah, they had, I believe, just had the power to do whatever they wanted with it, and they decided that was the best way to spend, which I applaud them for.
Yeah.
Other than that, a lot of the agreements that were made were basically about LCS players, and so there's not too much to talk about other than that.
Yeah. It's a bit of a nothing burger. A lot of the speculation was kind of right. I still don't think like the LCSPA acted in bad faith or any of that garbage. Because again, this is a moment in esports where the players took a stand, and I think that like giving power to the players is always valuable in esports, no matter who you are. And so that was great to see.
I think the biggest thing, yeah, was the fact that collective action actually did take place.
Yeah.
Hopefully, this is the start of something and not the end. So
Yep.
we'll continue to follow the story as it becomes more and more impactful. But for now, we can finally get into our 5 headlines that we wrote before this news actually broke. We could go on over to that now. Starting off with our first headline, which is going to be talking a little bit about CLOL. Of course, we have to just a bit more because we were just there and had to recap the event. A great time overall, but the University of St. Thomas did defeat Maryville University 3-1, just as they did in 2022. This time in the finals. My question to you, Hawk, is: we see Maryville is already competing in the NACL this weekend. If UST were in their place, what would you power rank them out of those 10 teams?
Yeah, and this is such an interesting question because I honestly hadn't thought about this too much. But obviously they took down Maryville, who we on the broadcast were touting as the team that had accomplished everything all year, but yet they could not get their title. And congrats to UST. It was a hell of a lot of fun to cover that. And honestly, they won a lot of their games by Dardoch and Shogo just being like fucking better than everybody. Robbie Bob also stepped up like major in the finals as well. Like deserved player of the series for Robbie. Lots of experience on that team, and honestly, I think UST would be like at least a mid-tier team in the NACL. I did like the tier maker power ranking. I've not tweeted it yet. But I'm gonna pull mine up and maybe I'll tweet it out tonight or something. But I power ranked Maryville in like the middle tier, the B tier, alongside Wildcard and a potentially Evil Geniuses challenger if they don't suck. So I would kind of put UST like at the top of that tier. I still think they might be a little worse than teams like Fear and AoE, but I think they'd be very, very strong. So I would put them like 5th, 6th, honestly.
Yeah, I think I'd put them around 6 if
Yeah.
I had to definitively place them somewhere. Because right now I have TL, I have Fly, I have Disguised, and then after
Which is
that
an
it's
easy top
probably
3, I feel like.
yeah. After that it's probably like Fear and Wildcard over them, and then there's
Ooh.
probably some debate over like AOE or maybe Taco or EG if they like turn up. But I think I feel comfortable sticking UST kind of in there,
Yeah.
because as you said, Dardoch and Shogo are really really good players. And if you think about it, the some of the players, are playing in this system. Robbie Bob is one of them in the NACL. The other two, Dardoch and Daption, are on top NACLQ teams, not to spoil. The other two, Shogo and Porsche, I think are just as worthy of being like at that NACL level as anybody else. So
Yeah.
all those guys played really, really well. I want to give some shots to Maryville as well because I think that overall their gameplay was pretty solid. I think Zyko specifically played pretty well.
Yeah.
But this is about UST. I put them at 6.
Yeah, I know. I wish UST was in the NACL because A, it would mean we get Shogo in the NACL. Fucking free Shogo, man. And 2,
One day.
we just get to see them play Maryville more because it was a really competitive series, especially games 1 and 2 were really crazy back and forth. So yeah, man, I UST, but shout out to them. They stepped up big time when it mattered most, and
Yeah,
proved me wrong at least. I was all Maryville, but they
I know a
stepped
lot
up,
of people were kind of just thinking that USC looked a little bit inconsistent, but something we mentioned on the
which they
broadcast is that
did, but they
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 did.
came through. They
They
came
yeah
through.
they came together over the last couple of weeks, and they really, I think people, they were saying like that's when they really started to feel like they were a team, and I kind of agree.
Yeah.
This is the best we saw them all year, and they came up at
I
the right
mean,
time.
it goes to show Game 3 of their series against Maryville was the cleanest one we saw in the entire CLOL tournament, which is crazy. Like
Yep,
they ramped, so
that was a gross. Yeah, they were insane.
they fucking destroyed them. Yeah.
All right. Well, we might talk about CeeLo eventually every once in a while, but that's going to wrap it here for this little break that we had between spring and summer. It was nice to talk about CeeLo a lot. But let's move on into the meat and potatoes, which is discussing the NACL as a whole. And some new roster changes for some of the big provisional teams that stuck around after this split. AoE, Wildcard, and Fear all kept some part of their team from the spring split, but they each made some of their own changes. Cincinnati Fear, as we're going to just go down the line, they swapped out Faisal for Philip, and they swapped out Trevor for JJ. Wildcard basically are swapping out Moose Hater for Zamudo because at the moment Isles does not have his visa ready and for the taking. And AoE kept Darkwings and Lynx, but added Concept, Will, and Breezy. Out of those three teams, Hawk, which one do you think upgraded the most?
Yeah, this one to me is pretty cut and dry, mostly because it's also the roster that made the most changes. AoE, I do feel like got big upgrades. I just want to say, kind of sucks that they got players in contract jail. Like that's not that cool.
At
Winnie and
least they're getting
Skytech.
paid this time.
Yes, they are getting paid. Winnie and Skytech are our boys though, so free them, please. However, I do think AoE has upgraded with this roster. Honestly, I've not seen Will play the most. I know he played in Academy back in 2022. I would assume AoE picked him up because they believe good things. Breezy is a fantastic support. I think this is a great look for any team. And also getting Concept. Look, Concept, not really the most exciting player to me. I think Concept is a very good top laner, though. And considering AoE was running with Gompsu most of the split last time, I do think this is an upgrade. So overall, AoE, they're looking strong. And I think the biggest thing for me is Moose Hater for Zamudo. Zamudo is amazing. I think Zamudo's a great prospect, but Moose Hater was also a huge X factor for that team. So I think that's pretty even. And then the Philip for Faisal. I mean, clearly Fly thinks that Faisal's better. I think a lot of us think Faisal's better. So Philip coming down, while still a great player, it is a downgrade for Fear.
Yeah, it was a straight trade, Philip for Faisal. I don't know like the negotiations and like that situation, but the teams swapped top laners in that scenario. And obviously with Fly being the challengers roster, you have to assume that they think that Faisal is the better player. And I do like Philip, but overall, I think Fear did probably downgrade a little bit. I am interested
Yeah.
to see JJ back in the league, though, especially with a lot of these younger players, because he was a very big leader on that Dignitas squad that did pretty well last year. And so maybe can help Perry, as he did with Dig, as well as Shochi and Minui, continue their growth, which will be exciting. I think this AoE roster is very interesting to look at because I do really like Winnie and Skytech, and with them gone, the identity of this team just changes so much. And so it's
That's
really
the
hard
thing.
to tell
Yeah, that's
what
the
this
thing.
team is going to look like. Because think of Wildcard, Zamudo for Moose Hater, like they're both top laners that will like pick things for lane and then team fight okay later on, right? So I don't think that's too much of a change. I do think Zamudo's probably a better player and has been boot camping in Korea for a while. So I will say that that is an upgrade for them, especially if Isles comes in at support eventually. Um, and that might just be my answer because I don't know how this AoE team is necessarily going
Mm.
to work. Um, there's just I don't know. I think Breezy is very solid. I think Will might struggle a little bit, especially just because there are so many like new good junglers that have come into the league since he left, such as Mir and Perry and Yuji, or I guess Yuji was there last year, but um, we'll see. We'll see about AoE. I'm gonna put a pin in that, but my answer for right now for Wild is Wildcard.
The shout out you mentioned about playstyle is definitely an interesting one. The biggest thing for me with Wildcard is I think Zamudo is an upgrade over Moose Hater probably at the end of the day. but I don't think their play style will get changed all that much from Zamudo coming in. And the thing that I have with Wildcard is they did sort of start to trend downward at the end of last split.
Right.
So I
But
don't know if I like consider Zamudo coming in to be like this massive upgrade for them.
instead of it just being Garen Poppy, you have fucking Draven top lane. You got
You're
like
not playing Draven
Quinn.
top. That
Dude,
shit was terrible, bro.
I will bet you $5 right now that a Draven top lane will be locked in
That
for Wildcard.
was fucking garbage. I mean, look, I'll take your $5. Sure, yeah, let's do it. There's no Draven top getting played. Look, Zamudo's the GOAT, but the Draven top was trash.
It had its moments. I'm gonna
Did it
give it a little. I'm gonna give it a little respect, just a little bit here.
Did it have its moments?
It won its lane. I'll say that.
It did win its lane. It did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm excited to see some of these teams play. We're gonna get a little bit more into the nitty gritty later on in the episode, but for now we can swap things over to the NACLQs, which are also happening in conjunction with Week 1 starting up. The OQ teams all got announced. There are 32, of course, that will be playing in this open qualifier. You can check out the full list on Twitter as well as some other places. Rally Cry Official did do the reveal show where you can watch that. But overall, Hawk, after seeing the teams, which of course are not on our screen right now, but do you think that the OQ pool is stronger or weaker from the spring split?
It's such an interesting question because it's a little bit of both. The top 7 to 9 teams in this open qualifier are so stacked with amazing players that we're on promotion worthy teams last split. But after that, it starts to fall off really fast. I feel like our 12 through 20, I'm a little sussy on. So that will be my very quick answer. I think the top it's going to be very top heavy this split. I honestly think it'll be a pretty exclusive club up in the quarterfinals. However, the rest of it, honestly, all that talent went high, and a lot of these teams, I mean, I'm sure there will be players that come out of nowhere and really step up and wow us, but at least as far as names that we would know and that you might know, not quite as many.
I think this is a really interesting discussion. It's not something that we got to talk about too much on the reveal show, but when you take a look at the general landscape of things, right? 7 challengers teams are just gone. The league is 6 teams smaller. And a lot of those provisional teams kept the majority of their rosters. So in theory, there are a lot of really talented players kind of just swimming around without a team. And some of them did find their way down here in the NACLQs. You think of Mirage Alliance, they have Chad, they have Neo, but not as many as I might have thought. But in conjunction with that, there still are more players kind of in the system, especially now with less teams in the NACL. So it was going to be some sort of balancing act, and I think I kind of agree with you on the fact that the top definitely seems stronger. However, we do have to remember that last year the teams were also not that good towards the bottom. There are a bunch of random rosters down there as well. So
yeah. I think the biggest thing is that middle tier, that 12 to 20,
okay.
like I said, is
yeah.
Last split, I was feeling oh shit, these are some pretty good teams. This split, hey, they could pop off, but I'm not holding my breath.
In my head for the qualifiers last year, it was there's 3 or 4 really good teams, and then the other ones are all competitive within each other.
Yep.
And then the bottom half isn't that good.
That
now
was a big
I
thing. I feel like we had a
smaller
upper echelon last time around, so it feels less dynamic.
It is interesting to note one of the teams that we probably thought was outside of that picture was Supernova, and they ended up qualifying through. So yeah, a little interesting there. But I think the pool at the top, with the pool at the top growing, that does mean that the OQ teams as a whole are stronger. That is going to be my take. I do think that the OQs will be a little bit less competitive, but I still think that 13 to 20, any one of those teams get in, I'm just not certain that they're going to do very well once they actually get into the group stage. I think they're going to it's going to be very clear who the bottom teams are going to be.
I actually really like the way you phrased that with the top teams being stronger means the qualifier is stronger, because honestly, I do think I'm inclined to agree with you, because at the end of the day as well, it's really about who makes top 4, right? Obviously we want to see all these players come up and look good, but when promotion's involved, who's making top fours, who's getting past the quarterfinals. So when the top is stronger, it is going to make the tournament as a whole probably more competitive and stronger.
Do you want to answer that question right now?
We great, yeah, great transition,
Yeah,
Hawk.
we can get into that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
man.
thought you were setting up for it.
No, early promotion favorites. Yeah, I mean we're
Yeah.
going straight. We can go straight to it. I mean Mirage Alliance has to be, in the conversation when you're talking about promotion favorites. Other ones that we have at the top, I'm just going to rattle off the top 4 seeded teams. Mirage Alliance, Winthrop University, Team Ambition, and Lit Esports are our top 4 seeds. For me in particular, looking at Mirage, Winthrop, and Lit to be big contenders this split. I am not a Team Ambition truther, unfortunately.
Seems like you never are, but a lot of us are historically TA haters, so it's all good. I do think this Team Ambition roster is pretty good, though.
I
We
think
can
it's
get
pretty
into that
strong.
right now.
I should say I think this Team Ambition roster is really strong. I'm just not gonna shoo them in like they're the 3rd seed. I'm not gonna wave my hand and put them in as an early promotion tournament favorite. I think they'll
Yeah.
have to fight.
If we want to discuss that really quickly, Bijani, Limo, Kachu, Levitate, and Snow. I think the bot lane is definitely the best part about this team.
Yeah, this
I don't
bot
think
lane
Bijani,
is fucking insane.
Yeah, Levitate and Snow played
Levitate and
really,
Snow.
really
I'll
well.
stop being a hater. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, they performed really good in the promotion tournament.
Yeah,
Better
they
than,
stepped up.
Yeah, a lot better than some of the other players that are down here in the NACLQ right now, which is interesting. The top side, though, is where maybe some of your concerns are, Hawk, because Bijani's on this team, and Lima and Kachi are a little bit more unseasoned.
Yeah, I think Bajani don't think is really the best top laner, unfortunately. And the thing with Limo and Kachu, I think these are both really, really great players, but I've just not seen it enough from them. Look, if Limo and Kachu step up, this team will be that promotion tier team. However, I do see a world where they can't level up enough and kind of get stuck at that 5th, 6th place. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that was my reservation with this squad coming in. But they've got a lot of I'm pretty hyped about this roster. I think there are players that could really end up being huge. The reason why I give Lit a shout is we all know how I feel about Dragoon and Messages. Their bot lane is not quite as good, but Kisno, also another player that really stepped up in the moment of truth. I just feel like I see less variables for this Lit team as long as Sajed and Chai can play to a high level.
Do you want to hear my hot take?
What's your hot take?
The number of teams that I think are pretty much shoo-ins for making it into the promotion tournament is 1. It is just Mirage Alliance. I don't think the other ones...
I don't think that's that hot.
Yeah, I
don't think that's that hot. If you're talking shoe-ins, it's definitely only
Mirage.
Mirage.
Or favorites. I think there's one favorite, and then I think honestly there's 6 or 7 other teams that can slot in there at this point, which is pretty exciting. Winthrop University, a team that we didn't talk about, participated in CLOL and also have some new roster changes, which include Trickster coming into the jungle and Sword from TSM coming into the mid. Also, FlyFam as well and 100next coming into the mid lane, but he was mid laner on TSM, which I think is going to be pretty cool. I talked about this on the reveal show. I think that Trickster and Sword are going to be a really good mid-jungle duo because Trickster is very selfish and Sword is very selfless when he was playing mid. So that duo is going to do a lot of cool stuff.
So the reason why... you know what? Actually, I'll counter your hot take because I am kind of in agreement with you. I think Mirage Alliance is the only shoe-in. I do think this Winthrop team is significantly better than any of the other teams below them still. I think especially Winthrop has upgraded where they were weakest in CLOL, which was Frost Force and Conveying. 2 great players, do not get me wrong. Frost Forest is one of the goats of CLOL, and Conveying has leveled up over his time this past year. But I think getting that experience in the mid lane to play around what we've already seen to be very mechanically gifted side laners for Winthrop, I think they've upgraded in their 2 weakest spots, and pretty good upgrades as well. Trickster and Sword are great players. So I think Winthrop, I won't call them a shoe-in, but I do think this team is a very clear number 2. And anyone on the committee that didn't put them number 2, I think is on one.
I
don't know if that includes you, but I'm gonna.
I put them number 2. I did put them number 2.
If you're in the committee and you didn't put Winthrop number 2, I would love to hear your reasoning actually, because I think this team is pretty stacked.
I am interested to see how this team kind of formulates together, and also how Denethor Mobility will do in like a full season of playing like together,
Yeah.
because we didn't see that necessarily throughout the season. Denethor kind of didn't get a ton of looks at all in NACLQ and only
Yeah.
really got playing time when it got to the CLOL
And
championship
and
bracket.
I want to shout out Denethor as well. I think there's a pretty obvious reason Denethor didn't really get looks. It was champion pool. Denethor on Winthrop branched out in the champion pool massively. Started playing tanks. Started playing other carries in the top lane. Still had the threat of like the insane Camille if you liked the matchup. And Denethor was the best top laner in CLO 2023. I don't think that's a hot take. I think Denethor was better than Niles.
Yeah.
Like really performed excellently. So this is a player that, like, when I say mechanically gifted side laners, this was the Denethor that everybody wanted when he came out of solo queue, like, really hot in 2022. So just wanted to shout out that player for really leveling up, and I hope, maybe he just keeps playing on Winthrop, but on a high-tier qualifier
Winthrop,
team with the
Winthrop
upgraded
looks
champion
really
pools.
good right now. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to see that team.
Yeah,
But
man.
as we mentioned, like, I don't think that this is just necessarily the easy top four. Miracle, which is a lot of the TL first roster, is in this tournament. Komodo, who has Mabud, Frostforce, Doxa, Aaron, and Sarcasm at support. It could be a pretty good team.
It's like a legacy Winthrop roster with the weirdest bot lane you've ever seen.
Yeah, Aaron and Sarcasm are friends though, which we learned
Yeah.
in that interview that we did. But then Cheese Chasers as well, which has Scooped on it, and I think Scoop might be like the second best AD carry in this entire pool. So that's gonna be fun to watch as
Ooh.
well. So I think there's 7 teams here that we really can look at.
Oh, that's such an interesting take.
I think it's Neo and then Scooped. That's my hot take.
Right.
But we can just go on to talk about some of the other teams here, because it's not just all about the favorites. It's also about making it in, and a big part about that is the seeding that the committee did. Hawk, you and I were both on the committee. Who is one team out of the pool that you think is severely overseeded, and one team that you think is severely underseeded?
Yeah, and there was a lot of variance in seeding this time around, it should be said, because how we kind of said that, like, everyone below seed like 15, we were pretty like, I don't know about all of them. Teams that I do think were over/underseeded. My hot take right off the bat is I do think the Froggy Five a little underseeded. I'm gonna try to maybe keep my opinions towards the top, because I do
My
think
boys.
these higher tier teams, like we said, there's like a big upper echelon here. Froggy Five, it's Geiger, Colthrow, Meslo, Psycho, and Pluto. It's like a GVU legacy roster. Grapes, I know these are your people. You had them lower than me.
I had them right at 9.
You had
where
them
they
right at
ended up
9.
being
I had them
seeded.
at 7. I think this is actually a really great roster. I think from top to bottom, it's just filled with very solid players. So honestly, it makes them hard to rate, because some of these teams like have, the Scooped team, right? Like some players that we're not exactly as sure what to think of them, and then Scooped. So I can see rating them higher. However, I think the Froggy Five, when you see like a very complete roster like this, it's surprising to see them so low.
Yeah, I think 9 is a very fair place to them, in my opinion, which is, I guess, makes sense because I put them there. I think overall, like, they're very consistent, like, solid players, but I don't know who's going to be like that star to take them into the playoffs, into the semifinals, into that top 4. So that's why I have them kind of around that area. Some teams that I want to shout out are down towards like the middle here, with Lotus and Young Buffaloes. I think both of those teams actually put together really, really fun rosters.
Yeah, I thought
that I'm
Young
excited to
Buffaloes
watch.
was underseeded. We had them ranked both at 13.
Yeah, I'm trying to grab the rosters really quickly just so I can make sure that I'm remembering everybody right. Lotus is Sandflame, Rapid, Ivano, Legacy, and ZKG. A lot of collegiate players there. Rapid and Ivano and ZKG are all from Winthrop. ZKG role swapping to support is an interesting development, but I think Rapid is actually a really solid jungler. Sandflame and Ivano are like 2 solid veterans in solo lanes that I think are going to be doing good. And my one to watch for is Legacy, who is the bottom laner for Ole Miss, who Colomer was saying a lot of good things about when I talked to him about CLOL. So I think if he becomes a really good player, like that team really just gets elevated to another level, especially because it is Legacy's first split playing competitive. The other team, Young Buffaloes, Boil the Oil, Duong Pro, Zhao Danny, Sahori, and Cerulean. Cerulean and Zhao Danny were 2 players that we had like right at the top of our up next roster. I don't know if we put them on. I don't remember entirely if we put them on the team or not, but they also have some other solid UCI players in there as well.
Yeah. I know. I think this Young Buffaloes roster is really cool. I'm with you on that one. Just to hit on some overseeded teams as well, not to like immediately just dunk on
Oh yeah,
people, but
I
it needs
forgot
to
to
be
do
done.
that.
Chaotic Solar. I have no idea why they're all the way up at 20. Grapes. We both had them all the way down at 27.
Yeah, they
Um,
have Macy's, Wenwin, Moss, Youngjae, and Nostalgia Lee. The only player I know on that team is Moss.
yeah. We don't have Scrimbucks, right? So it's hard for us to say. Some people rated them very high. We were not alone. Pukar had them all the way down at 24. RMC had them down at 26. But a lot of people had them rated really high. I don't know what the logic is behind that. This was in general, one of the most divisive teams. Akuma sides with another one. Grapes, I know we had them higher. A lot of people had them lower. Um, I look, they might be really good, but like 20 is a pretty high seating for a team I just don't really know anything about.
Yep.
So we'll see, man.
Here's an interesting team I want to talk about a little bit. CCG, the team that was formerly known as Not Third Party. Shocky,
Yeah.
Munchie, Rain, Lunar, and Baruto. I put them at 12, while this committee in general put them
Myra had
at
them at
8.
4, bro. That
Yeah.
is.
That
Look,
is
Myra, you're super cool, but you're off the bean. What is she doing?
I do like Lunar. I like the pieces that I know. Shocky, Munchie, and Lunar are all pretty good, and I've seen them each have like their own pop off moments. I don't know their mid and support though, and I don't see why I would have them over some of the other teams that are here. So I
Yeah.
put them a little bit lower than other people. So I did want to shout them out.
I had them a little lower as well. I think this is gonna be a really interesting team. We've had Munchie on the show to do an interview. Munchie is a great player. And I think Lunar's pretty good, and I think Shocky's decent. I should say I think both Lunar and Shocky are decent, but yeah, the big thing is I don't really know much about their mid and support. So I think this is like a really interesting team, one to have our eyes on. Could contend maybe to sneak into a quarterfinals with like a favorable group draw, but I think 8 is a little high. I'm with you. I think again, like teams like Froggy 5 and even the Keelix Grandpa Gamers like should have more consistent success. I think, or at least set a bar that is going to be hard to pass.
Yeah. Killick Grandpa Gamers, incredible name, incredible logo. The logo was just like like a brochure.
Dude, this is the most like
retirement home.
unhinged OQ team ever. It's just boomers.
Yep.
Like they're really leaning into it, but holy fuck, like RBM only Evan RL isn't Clyde like he's
Clyde's
been playing since
also
like
been around for a while.
2013, man. Like
Yeah.
damn.
Good time.
man.
Should be fun to watch. But you can catch all that action Saturday and Sunday on our twitch.tv/Rallycry official and Rallycry 2. But for now, we're going to shift our attention once again from the qualifiers to the NACL as we get into our part 2 for the episode. Come on down, everybody. Hop around the fire and welcome to Camp NACL. Our players here are going to be on a long adventure this summer as they're in camp to learn a lot about themselves and hopefully get better at some League of Legends. And we're going to kind of walk them through all the activities that we have today. I'm Grapes, your counselor, alongside Hawk. We're going to start things off by introducing everybody to the rosters that we have for NACL with a quick little icebreaker. Hawk, do you want to explain what we're doing today?
Yes, sir. So welcome everybody. Gather around the campfire here at Salty Runback. We've got all kinds of salty snacks, pretzels maybe being the main one. It's not really a campfire food, but we're going to go with it. And we're today playing a fun little camp game called Rosebud Thorn, where you share something we're excited about, curious about, and worried about something. And naturally, we decided to do our 10 LCS Challengers rosters. We're going to Rosebud Thorn each and every one. So hopefully she gets some interesting takes and perspectives on each one.
Yeah, we're going to basically, this is our way of introducing the rosters and giving our quick thoughts about them in a way that's not, power ranking. We did like the roster tier list thing last split. Should be a fun time. We're going to go in order of the placement that each of these teams finished in for the 2023 spring split. So we're be starting off with our number 3 ranked team finishing the split in Team Liquid Challengers. They are keeping all 5 of their teams of their players, and that's my rose, is that we get to see more of this roster play together.
Yeah, that's my rose as well. I really liked this roster coming into last split, and I really like it now. My Bud is going to be. I am interested to see if they can continue to level up. This was a team that had a massive growth arc over the last split. They, I think, like overperformed in playoffs in some ways, but they were great and they kind of really found themselves. When I think a big criticism during the split was that they didn't look like a super coherent team. So I want to see if they can keep that up and really ramp into the summer split grapes.
Yeah, if you don't remember, TL were like ninth place in the
Yeah.
regular season, which they had a lot of ups and downs. Some of the players that we thought could be in different spots than they were. Um, had some rocky roads throughout the split.
Yeah.
Bradley, surprisingly, didn't look like one of the best top laners in the entire league for the whole year. Did look very solid into playoffs. And Kim Down, of course, had his struggles as a rookie. And so I do think that having that extra split is going to help them out. My thing that I'm curious about, my bud, is actually this bottom lane here. Because Aaron and Kim Down are two players on kind of different trajectories in their career, of course. But overall, they were not like the strongest bot lane in the league. In 2023 spring. And with some of the new teams that we're going to be seeing here, I wonder how they're going to be able to continue to compete. I think that Arrow is just a generally solid ADC, but nothing special. And Kim Down was on a good arc, so I'm a little bit. I am curious about like how they're gonna do. That's my bud, I think.
Yeah, that's a pretty valid bud. As far as the Thorn, honestly, I don't. It's hard to come. This was the one I struggled with to come up with a Thorn for the most, just because they're running back the same roster of five. Grapes, do you have a Thorn for this team? I'm struggling here.
My thorn would be that it didn't seem like TL was super set on continuing the NACL roster like in their announcement. Obviously, great on
Hmm.
them for keeping these players around, but I hope that there's still a lot of investment into these players and they still get big looks because I do think that a lot of them are very, very talented.
Yeah, that is pretty valid. My
Also,
my. Oh, go ahead.
so some love to Bradley, please. If you see if you are on like Bradley's Twitter or anything like that, please make sure to
Yes.
send your support if you can.
Yes, definitely. Please send support to Bradley. Yeah. My thorn with this team. I okay. Here's my thorn with this team is I do think running it back was ultimately a good decision, but to add a little thorn, like not making any changes is interesting. Just when as you talked about Arrow, I think keeping Arrow is still like the right call for this roster, so Kim Down can continue to develop. But if I wanted to put on my LCS Challengers developmental hat for like a hot sec, like maybe if they could have picked up a more prospect 80 carry, there might have been options to develop Kim Down alongside. So that would be like my little thorn.
Yeah,
But
like
overall, like
maybe like
I'm
the
pretty happy
peak.
about this.
Maybe TL already reached their peak. Is that like kind of what you're saying?
Not even TL reached their peak, but like Arrow might have reached its peak, right?
Mm.
So, um,
Yeah,
just but change for the sake of change is not always a good thing though. So I'm not going to say that's like a very big thorn.
yeah. Very. That's good. I think that's a good one. That's a good way to introduce the format. Hopefully, it makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Let's move on to our next team, which is the Cincinnati Fear. They retained three of their five players. They bring in Philip in the top lane, replacing Faisal, and JJ replacing Trevor. My rose is that I'm excited that JJ's back in the league. I think he's a good leader for this team. And regardless of like how mechanically good he is and what his performance looks like in like specific matchups or anything, I still think that overall it's really good to have this guy basically be like your second coach while also playing.
Yeah, my rose, similarly, is going to be I'm really happy that they got Philip. I think if you're going to lose your really great top laner to a Challengers League team, being able to get their also very, very great top laner is really great. So good job, Cincinnati Fear, for pulling Philip over. Should be great for this team. A player that I still hold a lot of respect for. Despite the kind of rocky career trajectory he's been on recently, I think in the LCS, Philip was pretty good. So I think there's still a lot of promise here. And so I like that for Fear.
Yeah,
Um, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
my bud, something I'm curious about with this team is actually Philip and how he's gonna adapt to a new situation because he's been with FlyQuest ever since I believe 2021, and now is in a new environment with some new players. And I think that overall, like there's a lot of similarities in my eyes between Philip and Faisal and how they ended up performing last year. The one difference was that Faisal was able to get better advantages in the laning phase, and so I
Mm.
think if Philip can increase like that in his game and like not get solo killed by Lunacia 3 times like in a series, that is gonna help Fear kind of stay as that team that they were that finished top 4 last split.
Yeah, that I like that a lot. My bud for this team is going to be how much JJ does add to the team, because I like you, I'm very happy to see JJ, definitely a very experienced player, and I'm curious how it'll change the way Fear played, because I know one of the big criticisms we had of the Fear roster that turned out to be pretty unfounded, but it was a criticism we had, was that it was all very players that were new to the Challengers League scene, right? Like they all came up together, a bunch of friends. How is bringing a veteran like JJ in going to influence his team's performance is something I'm really interested in.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you're worried about with this team, this group of 5?
Another one that I'm struggling with, my Thorn.
I think for me, something I am worried about with Fear is maybe this is a cop out answer, but how real was their run in the spring split, right? Because I think this team looked really, really good a lot of the time. Um, and however, some of the big pieces that like I think led that team are now gone. Faisal, I think, carried Fear through a lot of their wins in the spring split. And Trevor, I think, actually towards playoffs was playing really well on champions like the Rakan. So we'll see how this core of Perry Shochi Minui like adapts with some of the new pieces coming in. I do think that they're all very talented. Maybe they're not at the like top quarter of the league like they were in the last split, and I'm interested to see how that looks.
That's such a so I'm gonna say I'm actually gonna disagree with you, because I think after 30 games in the regular season and their playoff run, I think Fear very much proved their mettle, and yes, they did downgrade, and that will be my Thorn. This was one that I actually had and I forgot, is I do think they did downgrade. However, I still think this is going to be a great team. So I'm not actually. I don't think their run was like fake. I don't think they got lucky. I think they were a great team and they've retained a core of that. So that's Fear.
Yeah, I think I still put them in the top half right now, but we'll see how that continues to adjust moving on. Speaking
Yeah.
of top half, we got to talk about
Yeah.
FlyQuest Challengers here because they retained the bottom 4 players on their team, but they are part of that swap with Fear, where Faisal is now the top laner for this squad. What do you have? You want to start us off here, Hawk?
Yeah, I'll start us off. Rose, keeping Masu, continuing to build around a superstar in the making, a player that is red hot off the presser, was red hot off the press, coming into Challengers last split and impressed a lot of people after Grapes. I know you and I were not convinced by that pickup.
Yeah, I thought Faisal had promise, but maybe wasn't going to be a top laner, in the NACL. He proved all of us wrong. I think he was probably like a top 3 or 4 top laner in the NACL by the end of things. Like he was really on top of things, making sure that his team like got advantages through the top side of the map, and that will also be my Rose because this guy is really good. I think that having him on this team, the team fighting for FlyQuest is still going to be there, and now you can have another lane to play through in the top side of the map.
Yeah. I mean, oh, man, Faisal really, like, a player that I always held in pretty high regard, but what a standout split last split. And picking him up is also definitely like a secondary Rose for me. As far as my bud, the biggest one for me is going to be whether or not this team can be the best team in the league. I know Cubby thinks that they're going to be the best team in the league. This was a team that sort of failed to overcome their demons a little bit last split. It felt like they started to get hot and then they didn't quite live up. But now that a lot of the other top teams are gone, I think whether or not they can overcome DSG and Team Liquid Challengers is going to be a really big one, or at least stay like up with them is going to be a really interesting thing to watch.
My bud, something I'm curious about is how much Masu can grow as a player, because he grew a lot as a player this spring. And I think getting another full split with this roster is going to be very, very exciting. And I think that is probably one of the big reasons that FlyQuest even has a Challengers team in the first place. The fact that they have this guy Masu in the bot lane. So I think if things go well for him, like he can be LCS next split. And so
Yeah.
that is what I'm watching for. Because if not, maybe kind of just hovers around here for a while.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Faisal again really standing out. My one thorn for this team with the pickup of Faisal though, Faisal is sort of someone that can play weak side. However, this is the kind of team that there might be too many cooks in the kitchen, especially when you've got such a young X factor 80 carry. That's something we need to keep our eyes on, right? Is like how they're able to give everyone the resources that they need and let everyone play that they want to. I don't foresee it being a huge issue. I think this is a pretty complete team, but that will be my thorn.
My thorn is that I'm a little worried about the mid jungle for this team. Yuji and Spirax were so amazing in 2022, and they were kind of a middle of the pack mid jungle in 2023. If they kind of stay around that, they're not going to win the split. If they become what, like, that continued trajectory again, like, I think that this team probably will win the split. And so that is what I have my eyes on, because I remember a large part of this discussion was that, like, Diamond leaving this team played a big role in Eugene Spirax maybe not performing as well. I think Winsome
Mm-hmm.
is a good shot caller, and we started to see some better play out of them towards the end of the split. I want to make sure that continues before I put them as my favorites.
Fair enough. Yeah, I definitely think this will be a contender, though. But we should keep it moving because we're spending a lot of time already. We might want to go a little bit faster. Wild card up next. Zamudo, Keel, Saligo, Lens, and Duo King / Isles. It is going to be Duo King starting, which makes Zamudo the only change. And Grapes, I'm starting it off immediately. My rose is Zamudo back in North America playing in an LCS Challengers roster.
Let's
I don't need to
go.
say anything else than that.
Didn't take the tenacity route just yet. He's still going to be back and put some more faith into our region, at least for one more split. And I think this guy is going to be really good. He was such an exciting prospect on AoE last split. I thought he was for sure going to get promoted into the NACL going into 2023, but decided to take a split off
Yeah.
and play in Korea. Comes back, and even with less teams in the league, still is able to find a spot. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. It's great for Zamudo. My Bud and my Thorn are actually very similar for this team. My Bud being that I'm curious if they can play to early split wildcard level or if they've, like, as a team regressed to the mean. We'll see how Zamudo coming in really spices things up. And my Thorn as well is going to be, like, this is a team with such a unique play style. I think Zamudo will slot into that. But also, like, I know I had this opinion kind of coming into the split. This is a roster that, like, if it got nuked from orbit and all these players went on to different teams, like, it might be good for them as well. They've just all played together for a really long time, at least, like, this core. So that's, like, a little bit my Bud and my Thorn is, like, can they find themselves again, their craziness? Can they be the wild cards
Yeah.
that they were at the beginning? Or is this just going to be a team of, like they're kind of fucking around a little bit. They end up being lower half.
My bud is that I'm curious to see if this team still is wild card, right? If it's one change, for the moment, right? And we did say in our headline section that Zamudo can do some of the similar things that Moose did, but there's the whole issue or discussion about, like, camaraderie with each other. I know Moose Hader was good friends with a lot of the players on this team, and also that he was such a big identifying factor on the team with, like, just playing the Garen and playing these, like, big team fighters and things like that. We'll see what Zamudo does to change to make things a little bit different, because he does have his own weird pocket picks, but maybe they function in slightly different ways.
Yeah, I can see that. What's your Thorn? What you got to give it to me?
I think my Thorn is that Isles isn't here. I feel bad.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
he deserves.
that's valid.
I think he deserves another opportunity. I was happy to see him a part of the league again, and hopefully things get figured out.
Yeah, that's a valid Thorn. AoE though, up next, Grapes. You know what? You go first this time. Hit me with your rose.
All right, Concept and Will, Darkwings, Lynx, and Breezy. As we mentioned before, we kind of talked about all three of these teams in our last segment. My rose is that I'm excited to see Will back here playing in Challengers. This guy was a big hyped prospect for the entirety of the summer split in 21, the summer split in 22, and now the summer split in 23, where he seemingly doesn't play the spring split, maybe for school or for other reasons. But I think he's exciting. I think he's an exciting person to put our eyes on overall compared to Winnie. At the moment, like in my head, I think that Winnie might be like the more complete player at the moment, but Will
Hmm.
definitely has a super high ceiling that I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, that is again going to combine a couple things here. My Rose was exactly the same as you. I think Will is just an exciting player to see come in. And again, one that generates a lot of hype. My Bud as well will be, can he sort of slot into that AoE playstyle? Because I know you had playstyle concerns, which we can get into in a little bit because they are valid. However, you're still keeping Dark Wings and Lynx with a weak side top laner. Like the identity
Right.
core feels similar enough, at least when looking at these names. So can Will kind of be the Winnie? Can he be the tank commander? Or will he do it in a different way? And what will that look like? That is a big, like, bud for me is going to be, how does the AoE playstyle sort of evolve going to Summer Split?
My Bud is going to be the bot lane here, Lynx and Breezy,
Ooh.
because I think that they could be a really good NACL bot lane together. I don't know about you, but
They
these
could
are
be.
two. These
I
are
think Breezy is a great player. So and Lynx has, especially in lane, been performing well
yeah.
as well.
These are two players that have had their own individual partners for about a year at this point. Lynx played with Skytech for about a year. Breezy played with Mish for about a year.
Yep.
Now get to kind of come together with each other, and I think that Breezy kind of brings a lot of like leadership and good laning power in the bot lane for CLG, or did. And so now with Lynx, like this might be one of the more dominant laning bot lanes that we have in the league. My
Yeah.
Thorn, unless you have anything else to say
No,
about that.
no, I don't. I'm just in agreement. I think this could be a really a good 2v2.
My Thorn, I think it's like I feel like AoE had such a good identity, and are moving a lot of pieces to maybe in theory make their roster stronger, but I'm worried that that's not gonna actually end up being the case. And not that AoE was like a super top tier roster or anything, because they finished 9th to 12, but yeah, I like the way that organization, that roster was being built over the last year and a half or so, and it's sad to see it change so quickly.
I'm exactly with you. I felt like a lot of AoE's changes were changes for the sake of change. Even though, like, I will say, like, I think Breezy is probably better than Skytech is the big one for me. I liked the core that they had. I think Winnie. Everyone knows how I think about Winnie. I think Winnie's a great player. I feel like they had something with that team. Talk to Winnie and Sky, and they'll tell you that the team environment on that AoE core was phenomenal from last summer into the spring. Putting players in contract jail as well as like kind of not cool, man. I think like just making a change in top lane, I'll say like I would have done that if I was AoE, but the jungle support changes, well, I think like they definitely could be positive. Do feel like change for the sake of change.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it ends up going. We'll continue to watch it, I guess, as we go through the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Our next team is Evil Geniuses, I believe, and I'm gonna get this off right off the bat. The rose is that they're finally fucking here playing together, man.
This is the easiest one for me. The rose is that they're finally here fucking playing together. The bud is, can they actually live up to the hype now that they're finally here fucking playing together? And the thorn is that they fucking sucked last split. Like that's it. That is like 1, 2, 3. That's the rosebud thorn.
I do think that is cool that with EG being one of the 3 teams that actually kept their challengers roster, they decided to keep all 5 of their players because they so clearly have faith in this roster working that they like held the line for so long and they
Yeah.
were so confident all the time.
Yeah.
And took a whole split, but now King is here. It's like King is like the the meme of Donald Glover from Community when he walks in with the pizza box and everything's on fire.
Yep.
That's King right now.
That is.
He's here in a kind of disheveled league, and he's gonna have to put
You
his
should
carry
make
pants
that.
on and help this roster.
You should make that meme and tweet it. I won't steal that because that's really funny. That's so good.
We'll see. Yeah, perhaps. I think it could go into.
You could put it on the screen here.
It could also be like, after watching EG like implode after a series, that could be a fun thing to watch as well. My Bud, I guess, is very similar to yours. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, is it actually gonna be like this really
Right.
good roster?
'Cause
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead first.
Well, remember, I had this team like as like my third or fourth favorite roster at the start of spring split,
Yeah.
and they did not live up to that whatsoever. So
Yeah, my big thing is like their problems looked like they were outside of just like having a slightly worse AD carry. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so that's like the big but, right? Is like aside, when I've said it really generally, like, can they actually perform? Like, this team looked like they were dysfunctional for other reasons. So that is like a big but is like, will they mesh? Will King coming like solve everything? Who knows? But that's a huge thing.
yep. You have a Thorn for this team? I guess you already did all three
My
of the points,
thorn
right?
was that they
Is
were
that they were bad?
yeah, they were like this roster, like, and kind of going off of it, like this roster looked like it had problems. I don't know what those problems were. It looked like it had problems though.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my thorn is like you're a Challengers League team, one of the Challengers teams, one of the three that stayed, and you're running back the 10th place out of 10 with affiliated Challengers teams. Like that's commitment, you know?
Yeah.
So that's like a thorn for me. However, it's also a bud. So, who knows?
Yeah. Let's my Thorn here is take a look at the players that are on this team. I think the veterans kind of did their job. Smoothie was, an average support who was a good leader, and Ryoma was like a very solid carry in the mid lane. Sol and Shaden are like the two prospects that are supposed to be, picking things up and really growing. And while we did see Shaden have some big spots, I need to see more out of these two players and
Yeah,
see them truly
exactly.
develop into the LCS talent that EG so obviously like sees. Um, yeah, we just need more, and I think that they're very capable of doing that as we have seen in the past. But if this team's gonna go, it's gonna be because of them.
Yep, exactly that. Well,
Right.
now we're getting into some of the new teams. We're finally getting past all the teams that are coming back. It's starting with Maryville. They are running back their roster from last bit split grapes. And my rose is going to be maybe a cop out, but I am just excited to see this team play in the Challengers League and represent collegiate at the yet highest level that we have seen.
Yeah, I think that's a narrative that we brought up a lot on the CLOL broadcast, just the fact that they have kind of transcended what it means to be a collegiate program, and being here in tier 2 is really exciting for them.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be my rose as well. Just like I'm very happy for this school. They've worked really hard. Clerky has done a great job building up the program, and now they have something that they can do in the summer. They have all 5 of these players who I think are really really solid all around, and should be a fun watch.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna go to my thorn next, actually, and maybe we can get to the bud because my thorn with this team, and maybe it goes into my bud, is this is a team that is made up of a lot of great players that are very used to dunking on teams that are a lot worse than them,
This is a
and
good
they're
point.
about
Yeah.
to play against a level of competition that they have never seen. A lot of these players, and that is a thorn for me. Like, Odd Orange has not played at this level in years. Neither has Get Back, and Scary Jerry and Zyko have never played at this level. Even Niles, it's been a long time. And they're going to run into some very good teams in the Challengers League, and I think there might be an adjustment period for them against the top tier teams.
That was actually going to be my bud. The fact that we're seeing Get Back, Scary Jerry, and Zyko at this level for the first time, and it's still kind of hard to tell where exactly they're going to land because are all NACLQ first teams
Yeah.
back at the end of last split. But it is a new level of
It's just
competition that
it's
they
a
haven't
different
played
beast,
in.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, Get Back played OPL. It's hard to tell like which one of those like is the higher tier, But Scary Jerry and Zyko specifically, like their bot lane that kind of just were good by smashing a bunch of players that were worse than them, and so we'll see how they do there. The
Yeah.
thorn that I have, I guess, is that I'm hope they don't tilt after losing CLOL because they're probably gonna take a break. I actually know that they're gonna be taking a break going into NACL because they've been scrimming every day for the last like 3 weeks prepping for this tournament, and they're gonna be kind of behind a step because they're on a new patch and they probably aren't gonna be scrimming a lot of teams at this level going into the year. I just hope that doesn't mean they're at a step back throughout the entire season.
It's definitely a valuable Thorn because yeah, it's true. Like there's a world where this team takes a minute to come together. I feel like, especially again if they're getting suddenly blasted by teams that they've not gotten blasted by before. But they were like scrimming Cloud9 apparently when they were out in LA, guys. Like this team was taking things really seriously. But as far as my bud, the reason why I want to save it for last is because it's a bit of a change of the conversation. I like mostly agree with your bud, by the way, but I'm wondering how long it takes for one of these players to get promoted.
Oh, you mean like to a different team?
To either like a LCS affiliated challengers team or just like an like
Wow.
in some way like that because Maryville has hit a new bar and I think pro teams like the orgs like Maryville is probably the most established organization that's not a pro team in North America, and that includes teams like Fear. So that's like my take right there is like, yeah. I'm wondering how long it takes for someone to get sniped. Now with the new Challengers League landscape, like I don't know how likely that is for like, Team Liquid to want to pick one of them up or whatever, but we'll see.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting because there were rumors at the start of this year that like there were LCS teams in talks with collegiate programs to like merge their
TSM wanted
programs.
to just like buy out Maryville basically. Like
this is a really good trial run for Maryville. If they're able to perform well, if people can see like what it means for them to develop talent, they're going to be getting every offer from every LCS team if that becomes the thing that, is implemented into 2024.
Yes, they will. All right.
Cool to watch.
It will be cool to watch. The other promotion, it's Supernova with a fucking completely different roster. That's my Thorn. They promoted, the Heart of Amateur promoted, and then it got nuked, which I will say, from what I've heard, was not entirely Supernova's fault. It definitely sucks, but it seems like it was more of just like a, if we're on r/AITA, am I the asshole? It feels like everyone sucks here. Was the solution, the thing. Supernova, not the asshole. The players, not the assholes. Maybe Supernova a little bit more, but everyone kind of sucks. It was just a shitty situation. But still my Thorn.
Don't know how much we can get into why, but there were reasons that people like Dragoon and Kisno decided to play on OQ teams that have the opportunity to promote over a team like Supernova. But that'll be my Thorn as well. It feels really bad.
Bro, after the Dragoon interview, he's back down in the qualifiers, man.
Yeah, man. Very unfortunate, specifically for Dragoon. But he said on Twitter, like, I'm just gonna promote back again. It was stat free, so I love that mentality. I hope that.
Shout out Dragoon, by the way. Great player.
Yeah, my rose for this team is that I like a lot of the players on this roster. Robbie Bob kind of took things to a new level, I think, during the CLOL finals, and it was really fun to watch him. Quacker played really well during the promotion tournament. Sketch, I was always high on as a marksman, and I'm happy that he's back. And Trevor, as you said, as I said earlier on Fear, was a big leader, especially towards the end of the split. And Music, who was our like rookie of the split or something like that, not a rookie, but like one of the people that we thought was gonna take leaps and bounds into the summer split, and hey, he's on an NACL roster. So all the pieces individually, I do really like.
Yeah, same. My rose is that I think they've got some really interesting players here. All players that I could have seen playing in the Challengers League. As far as my bud, it's gonna be. This is a bit of a thorny bud. Will they be able to not be 10th?
That was also my bud.
Yeah, okay. Like, because I think they've got a lot of interesting pieces here, a lot of like developmental pieces. However, I think when you look at the overall level of talent in the league, this is a team that feels a step below. And also they're going to like, it's a brand new roster. They're all going to have to come together. A lot of these teams are running back parts of the same thing. Like, there's a lot of variables working against Supernova here, and it's looking rough. So,
yeah,
that's with the bud.
This team is kind of just a lot of pieces thrown together, a lot of like developmental pieces that I've been excited to watch alongside veterans. Yeah. And they don't really have too many of those. Like the veterans on this team are Robbie Bob and Quacker, and I guess Trevor maybe a little bit as well, but like none of them have like significant tier 2 experience, and so I am a little bit worried about them. My Thorn we already talked about, so we can move on, right?
Yeah, yeah, we can keep going. TFT.
Another team that also changed a lot of their players, and I don't know as much of the details behind this, but my rose is that Lunacia is on an NACL team, and I think he's very good.
Yeah. My rose similarly will be Onat's here. After promoting with Supernova, comes over still in the Challengers League, doesn't end up in a situation like Dragoon or Kisno or Azog or Chookies found themselves in. Just straight up is still playing here, which leads to my Bud. I'm curious if this team cannot be ninth. And I'll just fly through them because my Thorn is NXI support. This could be argued to be a Bud, but I'm going to say the hot take right here. This sounds like it's going to be shit. So
Yeah, like NXI has always been like a carry jungler, right? Or
yeah,
takes
I'm
over
like
games.
I'm not with this, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm happy to be proven wrong. Like I'm memeing a little bit here. Like I'm sure they have a reason, but NXI support is so unhinged. I like kind of hate it. I don't know.
Collimer brought up a good point in an article that he posted, which is that there's a lot of really good talent on NACL teams that got dropped that are just not on a team anymore. Players like Skytech, like Destiny, and just kind of feels bad to see them without a spot at the moment. Hopefully NXI can prove us wrong. I'm a little bit hesitant about this move. My Bud,
It's so unhinged. I'm sorry. I don't understand it.
my Bud is actually the veterans on this roster, Rose, Thorn, and Spawn, because they've both been in like kind of put in like strange situations over the past year. You remember Rose Thorn was on CLG Challengers at the start of 2022 and actually looked really good, and then he got put on CLG Faith after they promoted Kevy, and he looked a lot worse on that team. He looked good on Golden Guardians this year, but I hope that
Yeah.
continues on this new roster with a lot of like kind of mix and match pieces.
It
Spawn
is-
in the bot lane as well looked like one of the better bot laners on Dig for a really long time, and you know what happened with Spawn? He did not look very good towards the start of Spring Split. Turned it around a little bit when he got back to challenges, but also with him, I think he's actually like pretty good. And so if these players are able to play to their peaks, I think this team actually does not finish ninth.
Yeah, to talk about my Bud just a little bit more, Rose Thorn and Spawn. I think Spawn is like actually a really huge pickup for TFT. Like I don't really know how they pulled that. Like, look, Spawn didn't have the best split last split, but still came down to a very, very good Dig Challengers team, a second place Dig Challengers team. Like, not really sure how TFT actually were the ones to end up with, in my opinion, still a very, very good AD carry. And Rose Thorn, like you touched on, was a okay piece on a pretty good Golden Guardians Challengers roster. Will provide veteran experience, but the bit like I guess maybe a secondary Bud is like Spawn is like I feel like when you look at the rest of the names on this roster, like Spawn is one that actually really stands out as like this player could be a huge, huge boon for them.
He's gonna have to be the main carry on this team, I think.
Yes.
I think he is gonna be able to do it. I hope so. I hope for Spawn because I think he's a good guy. Let's move on to our last team with the best logo, Disguise, coming in. They're like last in our little thing because they didn't compete, but I think in our power rankings are gonna be a little bit higher than that. Fake God, Tomio, Young, Meech, and Zazel. Hawk, what is your rose?
My rose is that this team is going to win the split, and they're going to do it with young mid.
Huge. I mean, a lot of people have them first right now. Again, we mentioned this in our last episode. I think TL is going to put up a good fight. I think FlyQuest also is going to put up a good fight if Faisal is on that team. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's as runaway as people think. But
I think this team has their work cut out for them for the two teams that you just mentioned. But I just still really love this roster. I could think of a million roses for it. I think the developmental pieces that they've picked up are extremely hype and some of the best in the region. Zazel as a veteran is phenomenal. Maybe my Bud then will be, can this team actually get first place? And how much does I think in particular Young level up? I think like Young was great and I'm a huge fan, but to get real for a second, like Young did still have his struggles last split, and he did still have some like young mistakes, right? Like some rookie mistakes. So I do think he's the most green on this roster by far. So his level of play, I think, is going to very much determine the placing. Like If he can't be like a top 2 or 3 mid in the league, I think Disguise might actually struggle. And so that's something we've got to watch.
My rose is that something we mentioned in the past, that we have influencers in the league, and it's awesome. That show match against Delta Fox, I mean, we talked about it last week, but incredible. And I hope that Toast does more stuff with this team, because a lot of really good personalities on this roster. I'm excited to watch that. My bud is watching these younger players on this team. Tomio, Young and Meech, of course, and also Tomio, who was, on the best team last year. But, it's easy to look good as a jungler when you have fucking MNS and Diplex as your mid laners, right? And so, obviously Zazel is still around, but I want to see what Tomio looks like with Young, with Meech, kind of on a similar level to what you were talking about with Young.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot to look at. My Thorn will be, I don't want to hate on a player that has maybe received a lot of hate. I am not really loving the Fake God pickup. I mean, I know Disguise like very clearly just bought out like this core of C9 challengers, right?
Yep.
However, like Fake God was not the best top in the NACLS split. Maybe like down the stretch in playoffs, Fake God was performing really well. I'll give him that. But I don't think Fake God is really the best top in the region. It's a player that's bounced around for a while. Look, if you just want to like throw a stable top laner in there, then maybe like it makes sense. But I think there's more exciting options we could have gone for than this player. So that's my Thorn.
Where's Hoon? Hoon's not on a team.
Hoon takes up an import slot.
Yeah, but I don't know what the import rules are actually. So maybe that is.
So they could have. Okay, here I'll say this: they could have picked up Hoon.
Yeah.
But
Also,
I could see as an imported player not wanting to pay. I think this guy said he's paying like $1,000 a month or something.
Okay.
Also, like, come on, they got the 5NA team. Like,
it is
so
true.
I
Yeah.
can kind of see not wanting to go for Hoon, even though Hoon like was a standout. I kind of get it.
Kind of a prospect in his own right. If okay, we're getting off the rails a little bit here. My last thing before we close the show, because I know it's been a long night.
Yeah, we're going long.
If Toast threw the bag at Sniper, that would have just made this team so crazy, man. Oh my god.
If he got Sniper, dude, that would have been the shit.
It's just
Man,
like
why did we do it? Come on, Toast.
Then it's just like Grandpa Zazel and the rest of the gamers. That would have been fun. That would have been good content.
That would have been great. Damn, I'm actually really sad he didn't do that now.
Unsure about the availability, of course, because Sniper.
I'm sure Sniper was looking at the $100,000 a year he's gonna make as a streamer and was like,
maybe I'll
sorry.
take a split off. Yeah. But that's going to do it for our Rosebud Thorns for all the NACL teams. I feel like we got a pretty good deep dive into all of them. What do you think?
Yeah, I know. We really took the time. We discussed a lot of takes. Now you know how we feel about a lot of these rosters. And, I mean, I don't know. I'm excited for the split. 10 teams now. It's looking a little different, but it should still be very exciting nonetheless. Remember, starts on Saturday.
That's tomorrow as we release this episode. So make sure to keep an eye on that. Also keep an eye on the qualifiers, where we'll be covering all of those games before the NACL ends up kicking off. We all got some fun stuff in the works for this summer split. We're going to make sure to get the best content onto your screens as we can. If you have any suggestions, once again, let us know in the comments. But Hawk, other than that, let's close this show out, man. I'm tired.
Yeah, let's send it off. Be sure to follow us on all of our socials, Salty Runback Pod on everything. Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Apple Music. Did I hit all of them? I think I did. Send us an email at saltyrunbackpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Like Grape said, any suggestions you have. Tune into CBLOL English if you are fancying it. Tune in to NACL Qualifier, most certainly, to see that guy. Tune into the NACL proper. It's going to be a great split. But, if you don't think this guy's is going to win the split, if you think Fake God's the GOAT, you can take what I said and what me and Grapes said with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. Have a great night, everybody.